Hey guys, welcome back to Subtractive Synthesis 101 with Sonic Academy. In this video we're going to start looking at some synthesis itself and we're going to start off with a couple of simple drum sounds. Now what I'm going to do is I've got a couple of loops selected, sampled loops, and I'm going to create a kick drum and a little hi-hat pattern to go along with that. And I'm going to use Silent 1. I'm going to use two instances of Silent 1. So pick the first one. And what we're going to do, let me just see if I've got this yeah, it's initialized. Wrong one again. And what we'll do is we're going to choose 3 oscillators. And if you think back to when we looked at oscillators and how they sounded, we're going to choose a sine wave because that's nice and beefy and subby. We're also going to choose a triangle because it's similar. It's also quite subby, but there's some more mid-range content to that as well. And we will also use some noise to create an initial attack or a click for the kick drum. But we're going to start with a sine wave and a triangle wave first. So let's choose one in each oscillator slot there. And let's pull the octave down one on each oscillator because we know the kick's going to be fairly low down. And we'll start off with just the sine wave switched on, and let's set up the amp envelope. So we want a very fast attack because we just want the kick to come on really quickly. We don't need any release, although it's a good idea to just give it a tiny bit of release so you don't get any clicks at the end of the kick. Now decay, we probably want to set around the middle and sustain probably around here because we want the attack to come up and then we want the sound to tail off a little bit. Although we'll do most of the shaping with a filter. Now, what we're also going to use is we're going to use modulation envelope 1, and we're going to use that to modulate the pitch of both the sine and the triangle wave. And we'll start off with the decay. We're only going to use the decay setting here. We're going to assign the destination as pitch A because that affects the whole part A of silence, so it's going to affect both oscillators. And let's give this some value here and hear what this sounds like. So you can hear the pitch dropping down. And what's going to happen is as I reduce the decay setting, you're going to hear that drop down a lot faster. And that's how we make a kick drum. So you've already got the basis of a kick drum sound there. And this is quite a classic way of making a kick drum. Okay, so we've got that sound already going. So that's going to be the very bottom end of the kick. That's already sounding okay. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to bring a voice in on the triangle wave. Let's turn the volume all the way down. One thing I'll mention, if you look at the retrig button on Silent, I've got them both switched on. Because again, thinking back to how we looked at the retrig and what it does, we want the oscillator phase to start at the beginning of each note so we get exactly the same sound each time. We don't want the oscillator phase varying as we hit each note. We want the kicks to sound the same each time. So let's bring one voice in on the triangle and let's bring that into the mix with the volume control. So you can hear that's starting to add some mid-range to the sound as well. Let's turn that all the way up. Okay. Right, what we're going to do next is we've got a basic sound going. We've got the modulation envelope affecting both kicks, both oscillators rather. And what we'll do next is we're going to add a filter. So we're going to add a low-pass filter, because I don't necessarily want all of the high end in this part of the kick. So let's just bring this down a little bit. We might also have a little bit too much sustain here, so let's pull this down. Okay, that'll do for now. What we will do next is I might actually bring in the second modulation envelope to duplicate what we're doing with the first one. And what this is going to do is it's going to emphasize that pitch drop at a slightly different rate. So let's just see how this sounds. Let's just give it a little bit of modulation amount. So that's adding a little bit of a thwack at the front of the kick. Still not liking this tail we've got. No, that's better. So what I've done is I've adjusted the decay and the sustain of the amp so that the sound before it goes into the filter is already quite short. So if I take it back to where it was before, we've got quite what sounds like a distorted tail, which I don't like. So I've taken that all the way down, and let's bring the decay down again. Okay, so that's much cleaner now. It's much sharper. Right. I think what we'll do next is we're going to switch over to part B on Silent. We're kind of finished with this part for now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce a noise oscillator. And again, going back to when we were looking at the oscillators earlier, noise oscillator occupies all frequencies at the same time. So if we solo this oscillator, give it a voice so that it makes some sound, and turn the volume down because these are loud. That's what we start with. So, go away. What we want to do is we want to take the sustain all the way down on the amp and the release, and we only want to give this a tiny little bit of decay just so that the attack portion is set to 0. So that's going to come up really quickly, and the decay is going to bring it right down really quickly as well. So we're just going to get a little kind of ticking sound. And that should be enough. And what we're going to use this for is this is going to sit right at the front of the kick to give it some attack. And what we'll also do is we'll choose the filter on part B as a bandpass filter, which, if you remember, is a filter that it cuts out the low and the high frequency. So what happens is as we sweep this filter, it almost gives the attack portion some pitch. So let's listen to that. It's not strictly pitch, but you can hear the sound going up and down in the frequency range. It might work nicely with some drive. Let's try that. Okay, let's unsolo that and bring back in the body of the kick. This attack part's probably going to be quite loud, so let's bring it down. So the cutoff of part B is going to allow you to tune that attack portion of the kick. So once you've got it going with other things in a mix, you can start to tune that. Okay, let's just leave that there for now. What I think I'll do next, I'm going to switch on the EQ in Silent, because with the EQ in Silent, as soon as you switch it on, it does something. So let's listen to that. So that's immediately beefier. And what I think we'll do is we'll choose probably around 100 Hertz and just give it a little bit of a boost to give it a bit more bottom end, because that's what the kicks are all about, aren't they? So what we shall do is, let's be done with that for now. I'll open up a little MIDI clip for the kick part. And where's our note? Let's try one here. And give those a bit of length. And what are we at? 128 BPM. That's ideal. And solo this for now and play this. Okay, that sounded all right. Let's leave that one alone and we'll move over to the next instance of Silent. And we're going to use a very similar technique to, in fact, it's almost the same as the kick. And we're going to open up the GUI. And unsolo this so we can hear what we're doing. So let's choose the noise oscillator again. We're going to do exactly the same process of creating a little tick sound. So we've got that already. And what I might try and do is we'll use a bandpass again. Give it a heft of drive. Let's try a different slope. Remember 12 dB, that's a 2-pole filter, remember? And give this some resonance. So we can play with the tuning of this hat. This is what we're creating, a hi-hat. And I might try a little bit of distortion. I'm not sure how this is going to work. We won't give it too much. Actually, it's not too bad. So let's... Oh, I haven't even switched it on. Not so sure. Let's leave it on for now. And we will assign velocity. So we'll choose velocity as a modulation source. And we will choose filter cutoff as the destination. And just give it maybe, I don't know, that much. Okay. Actually, I don't like that distortion. That's better. Okay, so we've got some control over the cutoff via velocity. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up this MIDI clip. Let's find out where we're playing. And let's just give it some 16th notes all the way across here. And then what we'll do is we'll use the velocities here to kind of create a little pattern. So let's put it in draw mode. So let's do every third note, and let's keep things fairly random. Nope. Right, let's just give that a quick listen. Okay, this is sounding pretty static at the moment, but we're just trying to give you an example of synthesis, not a mixing. So let's just take these first ones down and see if that's any better. Okay, that's a bit better. So let's just take the level down. Just take the level down on the kick and see what these two sound like together. Okay, let's open up the Silent GUI. I'm not sure if the resonance is doing this much favour. Okay, let's try a little bit of delay, see how that sounds. Let's choose this one. Nope, don't like that either. Okay, so what we've got here is we've got the kick drum based out of a sine wave and a triangle wave, and we've used the noise to create a little attack. And we've used a similar kind of technique with the noise oscillator in the second instance of Synth to create a hi-hat. Now what you need to do is we're going to need to tweak this a little bit, because I'm not convinced that we've got the velocity settings right here. So let me just pull this out of the way. We're going to solo the hi-hats for a second. Again, I've just given it some EQ, so we've taken out some bottom end because it was quite fuzzy down the bottom there. And let's pull this volume all the way down and see what we've got. Okay, that's working a lot better now. What I think would work even more is I will use LFO tool here, and we'll just bring in some side chaining style effect. And we'll put that in the hi-hats and see what we've got. Okay, the movement there is a lot better. So I'm going to leave that on. So we've synthesized 2 drum sounds there, and what I'll do is I'll introduce a couple of loops to see how they fit in a bigger mix. I'm not sure what the level's going to be like because I've synthesized from scratch here, so let's see. Yep, that sounded quite good to me. Right, there's your first 2 really simple forms of synthesis. You've got an idea of how we start using the envelopes to create pitched effects on the drum sounds themselves. And I think what we'll do on the next video is we'll start looking at some bass sounds and see how we can incorporate those into a kind of bigger mix. So I'll see you then.